Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Meeting the Crew. Except this will not be my crew, and this is not an episode of Meeting the Crew. This is outside of Pathios Productions. I'm here today with a very talented.
Julio Miranda.
Oh crap! He said his name. I was expecting "You Will Be Afraid," but that is exactly the name of his YouTube page. You will be afraid. So we're here to discuss a little bit about him and his content. So, what exactly do you do?
I am a horror writer. So anything scary, creepy, spooky, anything disturbing, unsettling, anything that lies in the realm of the macabre is what I create. Oh, and of course, also I narrate that content. So um, I've actually had some people tell me that I perform it more than I do narrate it. And sometimes it feels that way, but sometimes it's hard to differentiate between the two because I'm literally reading words that I've just written. So it feels like I'm narrating, but sometimes when my heart starts to beat when I read something that hits a little bit too close to home that I've written or impacts one of my characters in a way that, makes my blood boil or something like that, then it feels more like performing. But usually, it just feels like I'm narrating things that I've written.
Well, that's the interview. Thanks. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's a. So it sounds like you're a one man show. Is that
That's
exactly?
correct.
Okay. Yeah. So I've sifted through some of your stories. Those are all you. None of those are outside.
That's correct. Everything is done by myself.
Oh, okay, okay. Let me see here. Sorry, everybody. I have a set of questions I had in mind, but that was in a that was in a certain aspect of how I was viewing his content, and now I must rethink a little bit outside the box here from what I had written. So, being a one man show, I completely understand how that goes. I myself have done the same thing. So,
Okay.
my very first question: how long does it take to put out one segment? I guess one episode of something that you've written.
One segment of something that I've written. To be honest with you, writing isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is actually putting it to audio. So I can sit down and I can write 2 to 3,000 words in maybe a few hours. If I've sat down and I'm focused and I have a really good idea of where I want a story that I'm creating to go, it doesn't really take much effort for me to actually bring it into existence. I've actually told a number of my followers on a live stream that I did on my YouTube channel. They asked me, how do I come up with ideas? And is it hard for me to write? And I tell them, well, I told them actually, that it's almost like letting an idea bloom. So every story that I come up with starts as a seedling. It starts as a seed. Either that's a sentence or a color or an image like a car or a flower or maybe an insect. And then from that seed, the story blooms. And when I'm focused, I can do it very quickly. Very quickly. That doesn't mean that it's perfect, obviously. Nothing that I make is perfect or ever will be. And I do take a little bit of time to edit my work. But because I try to create as much as I can and I put so much pressure on myself, what really matters to me at the end of the day when I put content on YouTube is to make sure that it's as polished as possible when it comes to my voice and any background effects that I put to a video. Um, so the hardest part is putting it to audio. So I would say that one video would probably take a good portion, if I go out and then I come back, if I live my life, I live my life outside of writing, right? Like I have a
Yeah.
life outside of writing, outside of video production, which I'm sure you understand as well because you run your business and your models and your ideas, in a very similar way. So
Yeah.
I know you understand that. So I have my life outside of that, but when I come back, I would say that when I come back from my life outside of writing, my free time is usually consists of creating that content. So I don't really exactly have a timetable because it varies, but I'll answer your question that way. It usually takes all of my free time to make my content. So I live my life outside of writing, then all my free time is spent doing what I do.
I'm gonna go on a guess here, and I'm gonna say a day and potentially a day and a half if you had all day.
I would say more like a day. I definitely I don't think anything more than a day. Um, for one video, maybe like a 20-minute video or less, I would say one day. Um, anything more than that, maybe 40 minutes to obviously to an hour plus, that obviously takes much more time because then I have to do more editing and etc.
Right.
Um,
And
but yeah,
you do include that audio drama sound with sound effects and just like background noise. You know, like they may be walking down a crowded room, and and you hear them in the back. I forgot which one I was listening to. I was God. It was one of your earlier ones, or at least down the list of videos that you've posted. But it was like it was like they were like tormenting this guy that was in a dream by replaying his memories or something like that. I didn't catch the full thing because I was you revamped the whole YouTube page, so I was lost when I took a look at it again. I was like, oh no, I don't remember where our last was in this series and everything. But you have that audio drama sound, so
hmm.
I want to know between the audio drama and the narration, which are two different
Oh,
styles. Um, they're not the same thing. Which do you prefer?
hmm. I'm sorry. Can you please repeat your question one more time?
Between the two styles that you do, audio dramas and narrations, because the audio dramas include like a back and forth banter between two people, or just you hear the scene, and there's no narration in between that. But then you have the narrations that you do. Which of the two do you prefer to do?
That's a very interesting question. And it's honestly hard for me to pick one over the other because the styles are so drastically different. They're similar only in the sense that you're listening to a story being told. And I think that is the extent of their similarity. Because like you said, when you listen to a narration, you're listening to a written story being told, right? You're listening to someone tell you a story. They're an orator, almost like the Greeks did of old, right? They're
Yeah,
sitting, you know, in the middle of a circle or sitting at a formation, and someone is telling them a story, whereas an audio drama is more like a play, right? It's more like a theater production
yeah,
in a sense, and that gives it the opportunity to be so much more grandiose. You can obviously one of the most famous audio dramas of all time. The first thing that comes to my head is I think it was H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds,
yeah.
and I
It's,
yeah, that's and when you listen to that, the scope of the world and the events that are taking place and the characters are so much more enhanced because you feel like if you're not watching, you feel like you're listening to a play being performed on a stage. You could in your mind put yourself in the seat of an arena, right? Or an opera house and actually close your eyes and watch this performance being played out for you through the talents of various actors. Whereas a narration, it's almost like you're sitting in a library in front of an author reading their own book.
yeah,
It's very different, very, very different. So if Hmm. It's a good question, man. As
and it
far as my as far as my work is concerned, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
it
As
does
far
fine.
as my work is concerned, if I had to choose between one or the other, if I was able to make audio dramas consistently, I would definitely do that. I would definitely love to have like 10 or 12 or how many people needed to bring whatever vision I had in my mind to life. That would be ideal, because you can only do so much with one person just narrating their own stories.
Right.
It's limited. There's more room to create something more engaging when you're actually using an audio drama or a theatrical play format.
Yeah, no, you're completely right about that. I find myself having uh, more to do with the audio drama than just the narration style. So I feel you. I feel you on that, and I do feel the pain of the editing for audio dramas. That's one of the biggest kicks in the butt that I got. And I'm pretty
Sure,
sure.
sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got the same thing. Because those, it's how much detail do you want to be heard? That becomes the
Right,
question as you're doing it.
right, right. No, you're absolutely right.
And so one thing that has been on my mind ever since I've discovered you and your channel is why zombie stories? Now I know there's a little bit of a deviation from that. There's a few short stories like the one I was just describing earlier, but zombie stories have taken the lead on your channel. What is the reason behind it, and like what inspired that grand story of dang, I can't remember the name of it. I should have looked all this up. I sound like a retard. I sound very
Uh,
unprepared, but I know what I'm talking about.
I know you do. It's okay, man. That doesn't bother me. Um, to answer your question, it all start everything that I create starts from fun, right? Everything that I do it because it's fun, you know? I think of an idea and I start making it and I start elaborating on it because it makes me smile or it makes me angry or it makes me sad, you know? Like everything that I create affects me on an emotional level, right? And so if I can enhance those emotions that I feel while reading or listening or watching this story in my head unfold, then I'm going to pursue it. I want to make that a reality. So zombies started one because they're just a genre of horror, right? Everything that I create, I try to make as disturbing or as strange, or as psychologically appealing as possible as it pertains to horror. So, zombies just being a very common horror trope and arguably one of the most popular,
Yeah,
um, I started the story. I wrote one short story and it was just fun because I was like, oh, I've never written about zombies before. So let me just make this story and, I'll put it on the channel and then I'll move on to the next project. But it was received so well that of course, I want my platform to grow.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is being well received. Let me make another and then another and then another. And pretty soon I had, because people liked it so much, I just decided, okay, let me just make a huge story out of this. So I just made a character, I made another, and then I just went with it.
It's not. Yeah, that's It's, you just went with it. I really don't believe that because when I hear and like see the progress you've made on that story, it sounds like you've had this planned way ahead. You had such a like you had so much in depth. I can't explain how much in depth it was. It and I say all that because when I was searching for as everybody knows, the whole creepypasta universe, I was searching for something great, something more than just the typical 5 to 10 phrases you hear in every single creepypasta, And for those that don't know, creepypasta is just a scary story. I don't know why they're called. I didn't look into that history, but that's all it is. Um, but I was searching around. That's how I discovered your stuff. Zombies. I was looking for a good zombie one because I had seen a few good zombie creepypastas pop up. I just wanted to see if I could find any others, and then yours popped up, and I was like, a freaking like I don't remember long. I think at the time it was like an hour or 20 something. It was just a long ass story, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna check this out. This might be good. And man, was I just blown away at the time. I was like, this is way more in depth than I was expecting for a zombie story. You really bring those characters to life, even though it's just your voice. As much as I don't like hearing just pure narration, especially when it's like when the narrator's like, and then she said, and it's a deep male voice talking for the. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's just like a tiny like. I wish this would change. I was expecting to kind of like just get torn away from it after hearing that over and over. But surprisingly, your stories don't do that. In I just it's just like amazing as to how grand that and how many sequels to that you got going, or not sequels, parts. Sorry, I'm looking at it
It's
from that
okay.
point of view. But the amount of parts for that story alone, and then you have actually some what the Zombie Diaries, and then like the Zombie Apocalypse series, right? There's more than one zombie series, but are they in the same universe?
Yeah, every the first story that I wrote, and I'll only say the name because, of course, that's the name on the channel.
Yeah,
Um, Day 1098. That was the very first zombie short story I had ever written, ever. So I sat down, and I was like, okay, let me write a zombie story because I thought it was interesting. So I came up with the idea of a man who's experiencing essentially the final days of his apocalypse, right? The final days of a zombie apocalypse. He's traveling, in this world that he's in, and he's bearing witness to the remains of what used to be horrors, of what used to be things that tormented him for however long they did. So that was the idea. I just wanted to explore the mind of someone who was experiencing the final days of something so apocalyptic. And it was just a short story. I didn't really elaborate on it too much. I just wrote what was in my head and then I put it out there. Um, that story was not supposed to be related to what came after. It was,
oh,
because the story, the zombies that exist in that story are just vanilla plain zombies. They're George A. Romero zombies, if you will,
yeah.
right? Yeah, they're just the standard typical undead have come to life somehow. They're feasting on the living, etc. So that's what my zombies were originally. They were just like everybody else's zombies. There wasn't any difference to them. But because that was received so well, I was like, okay, this can't be enough. This can't
This
be enough.
kid.
It's it's just like if someone wants more of something, then eventually they're going to want evolution on that topic. When someone wants more of something, they don't want too much of the same for too long. Do you
Now,
understand?
see, now you're stepping into the human condition there, and I don't know. That's a deep rabbit hole right there. Somebody wants more. Is it enough? It's never enough, technically, man. Until you're dead.
True. 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 No, you're absolutely right. But no, I actually forgot your question. Sometimes I have to apologize because sometimes, and I do this with myself a lot
Yeah.
when I explore an idea or when I'm talking to myself or something. Sometimes I'll talk myself away from the point, so I have to apologize. I actually forgot your question.
Apology not accepted. It's fine. There's nothing to apologize for, man. All these questions I had given to you, obviously, most of them are being rearranged now, and there's no limit to this interview. Because so meeting the crew is gonna be 30 minutes, per episode, because it's the people that work with Pathios Productions.
Hmm.
Outside interviews, though, uh, you know, 30 minutes to an hour, it don't matter to me. This is all about bringing out your content and spreading the word of the artist or whoever I'm interviewing at the time. So talk away, go down different paths that you wish you would have taken. Get lost in the sauce, and I'll pull you back whenever I feel whenever I feel you might get too lost in the sauce.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah,
Well,
I don't mind talking with you for however long you want to.
all right, bet. I'm gonna remember that. So, with that zombie series, is there any personal connection to that main character?
Okay. You're referencing Blue Jay.
I,
Um,
I yeah, yeah.
correct. Thank you for agreeing with me. Yes, you're referencing who I named Blue Jay. He is the first character's voice that you hear in my zombie apocalypse diaries. And I will say that no, there isn't any um, resemblance or um, there isn't anything necessarily that ties us to the hip, aside from the fact that we both identify as writers. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. And everything else about him, from his appearance to his decision making skills to his physical abilities, etc., they are nothing like me. He's like he honestly is just a completely different person that I just manipulate on marionette strings.
Oh, geez, this sounds like a fourth wall right there. He's gonna soon start writing and think to himself, "Why am I writing? Who is giving me these ideas?"
Well, it's funny that you say that because initially he was going to be an extension of myself.
Oh shit!
But and you mentioned before that you were surprised that I hadn't written out that I hadn't thought out the whole story before I had written it, which I did not.
Yeah,
But when I started to actually um, dive into the idea, I wrote an outline of major events that I wanted to happen in the story and events that are still to come. So I have a general outline of what I want to happen from now until X, Y, and Z.
right.
I don't have the ending quite yet because the story obviously is evolving the more I tinker with it. But originally, he was supposed to be an extension of myself. But as I continued to explore the story and where it could go, I said to myself, no, I can't be this person. I can't,
Yeah.
like who I am. I'll tell you right now, I was about to cuss. I am so boring that if I wrote myself into that story, the story would end in like 5 minutes. It wouldn't be able to take on the flavors and the plot turns and the plot twists that I've already outlined for it. Those would be impossible if I was in any way associated with the main character. So I kept the fact that he was a writer just because I think that it helps his introspective personality. He's very
Yeah.
he likes to think a lot, and he kind of sometimes he
Yeah, he does.
you know sinks in, yeah, he sometimes sinks into his own mind, and that is the only aspect that I decided to keep with him because it was just easier for me to write a character like that, being a person who likes to think a lot. So that's about it.
So he likes to think and he likes to write. That's that's the
Well,
only
he
two
he did,
connections that you are giving him. So this is starting to sound like you, just without the rest of the personality.
he did like to write. He did. I'll correct you there. He did like to write.
I'm just making extreme connections there. Thinks and writes like that. Making a long shot with that one. Yeah. So man, that's yeah, that you really put yeah, I guess unintentionally, if you're not trying to, you still end up putting a lot of perspective for like that character. It seems like it doesn't take much for you to put into the writing. Like I mean, I can already tell. I don't know if everybody else can, but I can already tell that once you have that idea, it's just gonna, like you said, bloom into something. Because I mean, listen to how you're explaining these, the answers to all these questions. They're grand in themselves. So that being said, uh, how long does it take to write a full from start to finish? If you've finished anything, I'm not saying that they are finished because I do know how that is. Sometimes every story is just open. It's never done.
Sure, sure. So the question is how long it takes me to write a story.
Yeah, yeah. Just how long? I don't even know if I asked, but how long does it take you to write a full from start to finish story? That's one thing I have find. I know personally it's a really tough thing for me to do. Um, but from start to finish, I guess how long would that take?
Hmm. It really depends on the length of the story. To be honest with you, I can sit down
Short
and write a
story.
one.
Short story away
uh,
from the zombie series. Just a random short story.
Oh, just a random short story. Man,
Yeah.
I could sit down. I could sit down and write a short story in under 60 minutes, easy. I could sit down and write maybe a 2,500 or a 3,000 word short story in under 60 minutes.
And you know what this is starting to sound like? I believe. I'm just throwing this suggestion out there for your channel. I'm not, by no means I have any like connection with
Here
this
we go.
guy,
Here
except,
we go.
except,
Here we go.
except interviewing him. I believe what you should do a live stream or put up a video of asking for the viewers to throw in suggestions and to vote a suggestion. And the top 10, top 5, you should write short stories for them and leave them open ended. And potentially one or two, let that be decided by the viewers. What do you think?
Hmm. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. It would allow me to definitely interact in a more deeper and meaningful way with my audience. So I won't boop you on the head for that one. I think it's a good idea. I think your creative wheels were turning there a little bit too hard. I like it.
Well, I say that because you know what it challenges you to do. It challenges you to keep on kind of pretty much to keep up with them as they go. If they start throwing out like he goes to point A to point B, gets interrupted, in between, then deviates, goes around point
Oh.
D. Like when you start seeing those suggestions pop up, um, it challenges you to stay either on their path or you're just gonna be like, no, no, we're not doing that.
I see. So you're requesting or you're hinting at kind of involving my audience in a choose their own adventure kind of
And
story.
yeah, I say for one or two because when you start throwing in way too many, it just gets hectic. So I tried something similar to this. I'm only suggesting it to you because I've tried it recently, and
Okay.
it did well. It received very well. I am on various like Warhammer 40K groups and on Facebook, and I don't know if you know about that, but there's a massive lore line that like people love to discuss, talk about, read. And I threw in there one little scenario. It's a tabletop game, so I'm like, hey guys, here's the scenario, and I had a ton of people just throwing down suggestions like, I say this happens and this happens, and I went off and I was just like, you know what? Instead of trying to do one suggestion, I'm gonna write off on everybody's suggestion. So I had like 15 to 20 people to go from, and
Wow.
I was just going, and this was like I was like I'll take 30 minutes out my day to see what I can do. And I started answering, and some of them were really bland. I was just like, okay, this guy dies, and this guy moves forward. All right, what's next? But some of them were just extravagant. I took time, and I like made a short, very short story. I put in some like greatness in there, and I was like, all right, what's the next step? you know, um, and I'm just throwing that from writer to writer because that gets that got so much attention, and that got a lot of people interested, and they were just like, I really love what you did, man. I want to, I would love to do this again. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna test some other ideas. Let's see what works. um,
Hmm.
and I just think it's gonna, it would help you out a lot because you obviously are great at the whole writing aspect, but are you great at the speed writing when it comes to it, or are you just gonna take your time and do it video by video because that might be easier.
I see. Yeah, it's you're basically challenging me, aren't you?
it was a bit of both, I mean, everything could technically be a challenge if you let it. You
True,
know,
true.
yeah,
No,
yeah. Go ahead.
I I'm not insulted or anything like that. I'm actually glad that you posed the idea because it's actually a very interesting idea and it honestly sounds fun. It honestly sounds pretty fun. So what I will say to you, my good sir,
Huh?
is for you after we're finished here to message me with more details on how best I'd be able to do that. You know, how 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 I could do that in as efficient as manner as possible. And I have no problem doing that in a live stream sometime. But I don't know all the details, and just sitting here right now listening to you explain it, I'd like to have more details on how to do something like that. Do you know what I mean?
I'll get it written down and I'll send you the document. Don't worry, it won't you won't just be given given a map and just saying go. It's not gonna be one of those.
That's okay.
So I do want to can we touch on that right just tiny bit. I don't want to go deep into that. The whole I think you know where I'm connecting from map to military. I don't know if you want to go down that route, but just
Oh,
touch
it's
on it a
okay.
little bit.
That's okay. I don't mind being completely transparent with you. And plus, I'm a big boy. If I don't want to talk about something, I'll just let you know politely and we'll move on. But you can say or ask whatever you want. I don't care.
Okay, cool, cool. All right, so obviously you've made it known. I don't know if you made it known publicly, but you've made it known to me, and we've talked about it a little bit. You were in the Marines for 4 years, and
Correct.
so just some. Just give us a little bit of a tiny background on that. I'm not looking too deep into it. I'm not, it's not a what is the Marine Corps. It's just your background in the Marines.
Sure, sure. Okay. So I think the easiest way to explain that will just be me telling you my MOSs. Is that good enough?
Yeah, that should work. And for people that don't know, it's basically job.
Yes, MOS stands for Military Occupational Specialty, and it is your job that you do whenever you're in whatever service branch you decide to enlist in. I was a part of the Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team, in other words, FAST. I was stationed in Norfolk, Virginia for 2 years, and that's part of the security forces branch of the Marine Corps. And from there, I was sent to what they call the fleet, an infantry battalion, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, and that was in Camp Pendleton, California. So I spent the remainder of my time in the Marine Corps uh, with an infantry battalion.
That's good enough. I'm not. I don't want to go too far into that. But just so everybody knows, there's a difference between East Coast and West Coast Marines. There's a whole different attitude. So don't expect don't expect this man's attitude right now to be the same from another another Marine on the other side.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, yeah. It's a weird thing. When I first caught a glimpse of East Coast and West Coast, I was like, I was lost. I was just like, oh, that's not. I was like, aren't you a Marine? I was like, I wasn't expecting that.
That's
I mean,
funny.
yeah, it just threw me way off. Because I've been at Stewart and Fort Bragg for so long, and when I went to Fort Irwin for training, I was a little lost. I was just kind
Sure.
of.
Kind of like a culture shock.
Yeah, that's a perfect description of what happened. So, with all this going on, with everything that you do, and all the greatness and so you're not afraid to start over. Is that is
I
that
don't, I
true?
don't under, I don't understand the question exactly. What do you mean by start over?
So, your channel, your Discord, which that you've had, I don't know if it's still up. To you know to put blame on myself, I dipped out after you like erased everything. I was just like, I don't know if this guy's still going. I'm gonna just leave.
Sure,
um,
sure, sure.
but you're not afraid to completely start over on your content or
Um,
your platforms that you're releasing content on.
yeah. That's a good question. To be honest with you, I would prefer never to have to do that. I don't think
Oh,
I don't think any artist prefers or wants deep in their heart to have to start over. Like I don't think a single artist that's ever existed, ever wants to be presented with the dilemma of do I start over or do should I revamp this or that, because in a way starting over does a lot of different things and many of those things are negative. Not
and
only to oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, I was gonna say, and what it does is, in every and like the thing that stays still with starting over is it sets you back. Like that's always that's
Sure.
always gonna be a result. There's no getting out of that one.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that's probably one of the worst things that's happened due to my previous inactivity. You know very well, I took months off. I think maybe 3 or 4 months
Yeah.
not uploading anything to any social media platform. That doesn't mean that I stopped writing, but it does mean that I kind of became disillusioned with what I was doing and in myself. I was uh, I was going through mental issues, and those issues were preventing me from being able to see myself as any kind of success. You could call it whatever you like. You could call it depression. You could call it, um, you know, X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But those feelings that I was wrestling with, they were preventing me from seeing myself as anything worthwhile, as an artist, and largely as a man. It's very, and because of that, I had to, not that I had to, I made the choice. And that's probably the worst part of it all. I made a choice to quit, even temporarily, on something that I loved, on something that I started because I enjoyed it as a passion project, and because
Nope.
I had genuine adoration for. Like those feelings that I was wrestling with, those things that were bubbling in my heart, that were melting it from the inside out, they made me, no, they didn't make me do anything. I made the decision because of those feelings to give up on myself, to quit. And that's probably the worst thing that came from all of that, because when I quit, when you sever yourself from the rest of the world, especially nowadays, because everything is technological, everyone is connected in some way through the internet. When you make something of yourself, it doesn't matter how big it is. It doesn't matter if you amass 100 followers on a platform or 100,000. When you make something of yourself and you give people something to look forward to, something to enjoy, something to entertain themselves with, and then you sever that umbilical cord and you disappear, not only have you given up on yourself, but you allow other people to give up on you, you know?
Yeah.
So that's probably the worst part of what happened when I took that break. However brief it was, in the large scheme of things, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, that is nothing in the grand scheme of time. In the grand scheme of a life, 2 to 3, 4 months, that's nothing. That's a grain of sand on the beach,
Yeah.
you know. But still, especially nowadays when everything happens so much more quickly because we're living in an information age and a technological age, 2, 3, 4 months can feel like a lifetime. So for some people, even if it was only for 1 or 2 people, right,
Yeah.
out of my audience, that felt like an eternity when I was gone, when I got rid of my stuff and I said, screw it, and I left. To some people, that felt like an eternity, and to some others, it might have felt like a betrayal, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that was the worst part of that.
All right. So obviously, I had you, misjudged on that. After seeing what you had done, I actually assumed. I was like, all right, maybe he's okay with starting over. Maybe something I'm messing up on. Because I was thinking, I had when I first ran into you, I did kind of throw some messages at you, and you had mentioned something to me, stuck with me a little bit. Um, you know what? I forgot what it was. It had something to do with starting over, but it wasn't a justification for it. What it was a small explanation was to not be afraid to technically revamp what you're doing. To take a step back. Am I doing something right? Am I doing the right thing?
Mm,
Not for like good or bad, but like for yourself, for what this is. Am I going in the right direction? And that's what I had. That's what I took from it. I don't remember the exact words of what you told me, but I had been thinking so long about that. Because I was thinking to myself like, shit, maybe I'm doing it wrong too. Maybe I need to rethink what I'm doing. delete everything. I can't do that. I would never do that because I, I I struggle so much just to even keep consistent. So that's that's me though. That's everybody's different on that. But I was just
Yeah.
thinking to myself, maybe he's right. Maybe maybe I need to take a step back, think about what I'm doing, redo some things. And I'm glad to get that answer from you because that there's another myth just knocked out of the park. Obviously, you don't want to start over. It's not something you like doing, and I completely thought it was something you were okay with. So there you have it, folks.
No, no, it was in a large part the reason why I started over. Not only did I disappear, but when I came back, I deleted every single video on my channel.
Yeah,
And at the time, I had over 125 videos. I had over 125. Now I just uploaded I think my 51st video yesterday. I think it was yesterday. So
yeah,
put that into perspective. I had made 125 videos. I had taken time out of my life to sit down and write and narrate and perform 125 freaking videos,
yeah. Those weren't
right?
short either. They were pretty long.
And I deleted them all. Some stories that I will never, that I'm not going to upload to the channel again. Some things that I'm just going to keep, in a back pocket. Or I may upload them to another social media platform.
Yeah,
But, but I didn't want to do that. But so it was almost split in half. The explanation that I gave you is true, and but that was only one half of myself. The other half accepted that what that was necessary for me as a person. And I think that's important to understand. Nobody wants to start over, but some things have to be done to satisfy the individual, right? Who the person is on the inside.
yeah,
So what I did that because I felt that I needed to do it for myself. It was almost like a cleansing. That's what it felt like for me. There was so much gunk inside of me
hmm,
that getting rid of all of those videos and cleaning the channel out and starting anew was a way for me to almost spiritually scoop out all of that gunk that had amassed in my heart with a spoon. I was able to just take it out and empty that spoon into the trash can and rinse and repeat. And I was doing it physically. I could see it being done on my channel. So when there were no videos left on it and I was able to start re-uploading and start creating new content, I was like, okay, let's try this now.
yeah,
Let's try this, and let's see where this goes, and let's see if this feels better, right? Because things can always evolve too. You may have a platform that's successful and it's growing, and it may, be taking you places, but that doesn't mean that it's optimal. It doesn't mean that that's the best it can ever be. Things can always evolve. So doing that kind of reminded me of that as well. That being comfortable, getting stale, you know, being too okay with the way that things are, that
yeah,
is just as toxic, you know,
yeah.
as
That's a big one. That's a one.
yeah,
That's a big one that a
no,
lot
for
of people
sure.
don't think about.
For sure, for sure. And all of I I think too much sometimes. Sometimes I just think way too much. I like to live by the philosophy. I like to keep things simple most of the time because I believe that life is simple. I don't think that life is complicated. I don't think that relationships are complicated, that that love is complicated, or sex, or physicality, or whatever you want to throw out into the topic of life. I don't think that those any of those things are complicated. They're all simple, but we make them complicated as human beings, and that's what I was doing to myself.
Mm, okay. All right. All right. So there's a bit of a shining the light on behind the scenes of what happened there. And I'm glad that you're able to be comfortable with getting that out. I wasn't sure. That is one reason why I kind of approached it the way I did. I didn't know how much of that you were willing to reveal. But I'm glad you did because one thing that helps me out. I myself have kind of thought a little bit about different aspects ever since you told me that. I was definitely looking at my stuff differently, but I'm glad. I'm glad to get that full explanation. I got the end of this story finally came out. uh, yeah. So with all this being said, just gonna take it into a different direction now.
Okay.
So with your channel on YouTube growing, and do you still have the Discord? Is it still up?
The server is still up, I think. To be
Okay.
honest with you, when I made the Discord server, I had I'm not familiar or comfortable with Discord.
Okay.
So looking at my Discord now, I think that I see that the server is still up, but I don't know if it was able. I don't remember if I was able to disable it or lock it somehow or prevent people from entering it. I don't remember
Okay.
how I interacted with Discord before. So if I was to make another server, I'd probably have to make one fresh. I
Okay.
think. I'm not sure.
All right. All right. All right. So those are two different two different platforms you kind of got going. Do you see yourself maybe branching out into uh, you know other platforms, sticking with, are you gonna stick with YouTube and train through everything, or here's a little bit of a wild card maybe. Would you dabble into the podcast world?
Podcasts are like a mythical creature to me.
But they exist. They're
That's true. They are not fiction. They actually exist. But I don't know the slightest thing about starting a podcast. It's definitely something that I would not turn down. I think that it's an interesting idea, and I'll explore it and I'll look into it and see what I can do to make that a reality. But before you had asked that question, I had never really seriously considered it. Of course I know that they exist, but it's
right,
just
right.
not something that I thought that would fit me for some reason. I don't know why, but I'll definitely look into it now that you've posed the question.
What I think, because I feel the same way. I've been told numerous times about starting a podcast, and I believe the reason why, at least I might be able to throw some light on that, is you think of it as a kind of an interview or just a talk, just sit and talk, maybe. At
Hmm.
least that's what I think of it as, because that's all I ever see. I only see
Sure,
people,
sure.
yeah, in the studio with headphones on, and they're sitting across the table from another person. They're like, why are you fat? They're just asking questions, and they're just asking random
Sure.
questions to their guest, and the guest is just like, man, I don't know, I'm just fat.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess there is that preconception, right? That podcasts are just two people sitting on a couch talking about mundane things to one another. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and we forget there's news podcasts that are literally news, and you're like, isn't podcast prior to the event happening? Not like event happened and it's a big
And now I'm
story.
reporting on
Yeah, yeah, it's a
through a
weird
podcast
concept. Yeah, to me that's still a weird concept because I'm thinking news as like it's like,
live.
yeah, or live or just within the current times. And I know podcasts sometimes some of them do every single day an episode, but if you're doing news, it's like you're expecting that real quick. I'm gonna wake up next morning within 8 hours now.
And yeah, and hear
Yeah,
about some tragedy that's long been over with.
yeah, exactly. And that's just is wild. But there's that. There's that. So you're not against it. So that's
Oh, most definitely not. I'm not against it, but it's just that I've never seriously considered it. And in part, it's probably because of what
yeah,
you explained. Maybe subconsciously, a part of me just kind of dismissed podcasts. Not dismissed, but just considered them things that two people would do with one another instead of just one person, performing his stories. Like that to me doesn't traditionally, I guess, like if you were to look up a textbook definition of a podcast, like to me that wouldn't be a podcast. A podcast would be one guy A says something to guy B responds, both guys laugh, they move on to the next topic. To me, that's what a podcast, is in my mind.
Yeah. Both guys. I could just see cue cards. All right, moving on. All right, so that's awesome. That's awesome. I really hope, I hope and suggest that your stuff moves towards bigger and greater things like podcasts. um, and in one way that I've seen it, because I'm working with a guy that does podcasts, and one way that I've seen it is just like per episode is a story, or it could be the same story just continued. It you move towards bringing kind of the YouTube content that you have and just copy and paste to the podcast. That's
Got you.
yeah, that's definitely one way of doing it. I didn't think that
And
was
then
a
just
thing.
continuing.
What's up?
And then just continuing on when I catch up on all the content, just continue on from there.
Yeah. You could, you can even do it parallel to your YouTube, and it just when this one releases, you'll be like, all right, guys, 3 days from now, it'll be on the podcast or whatever.
See, I
Yeah,
see.
yeah. That's been revealed to me recently. I didn't think of it like that either, because all I had ever seen was that A and B conversation going on. So there's something to educate both of us.
Definitely. I've been educated, without a doubt.
Right. So back to You Will Be Afraid and just all that. Um, so I believe You Will Be Afraid was the name of the first story you did. Am I correct on that?
No,
Oh
no. The
crap!
name, no, 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 no. The name of the first story that I did, I don't even remember. I couldn't even tell you.
So I could
But it
be
was not
right.
you.
Okay, I will take that as a win. I'm taking that as a win, whether you like it or not.
I, I walked right into that one. I stumbled and fell into that one. That's what happened.
Hey man, that's how I win almost every single anything I've ever done. So a game of
Oh my.
pool, I always like sucker the next guy into doing a trick shot that he can't make with the 8 ball. That's
Oh,
how I
you're
win.
a hustler.
I
You're
mean,
a dirty. You're a filthy hustler.
I
You
can't,
filthy,
I
disgusting
can't,
hustler.
I can't
We're done.
win.
We're ending this right now. It's over.
I can't win with my talent. I know I'm not good, but I can win by tricking you into doing what you can't do.
You're the most deplorable type of person. I hope you know that.
That's my stance power. So that's what. A little bit of a JoJo reference if nobody knows JoJo. I'm pretty sure people know that show.
No, I actually don't. JoJo is so big, but I've never seen one episode of JoJo.
It's all
I,
right.
I, I
That's the greatness of JoJo is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is like unknown but known. I don't know how. It's bizarre.
everyone knows about JoJo. That's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Yeah. If you like cartoons at all, and I know some anime fans, they cringe when someone just blankets everything underneath the word cartoon. But
cartoons.
I understand they're called anime. I'm just saying, if you like cartoons
No,
at
they're
all,
cartoons.
and you, then you know what JoJo is, because JoJo just invades every animation culture. The references just go everywhere, and you just see one meme, and then that meme leads you to another JoJo meme, and then pretty soon you've got like some dude running at you out of nowhere going ora, ora, ora! And you're like, oh my
Is it gonna be the ora ora? Yes. Oh man, yeah, I feel, God dang, I finished seasons 1 and 2, and I've started 3. So it's kind of been fresh on my mind.
God. Oh, so you're a diehard JoJo fan.
I am becoming one. My name is Jonathan. So I mean,
Boo!
I,
Boo!
look.
I'm doing a thumbs down motion right now. I'm boo this man.
Well, I don't accept it. So there. I don't accept the award of a boo. So, but when I first saw it, I was a little like it's over the top. But
Hmm.
what caught my interest, and I'm only telling you this, it's not, I don't want to, just like anything I'm talking about outside of your podcast, outside of your YouTube. I don't want to go too deep into it, but when I first saw JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, what caught my interest and what kept me going was the majestic posing, the majestic like scenes that they would do. They would take an extensive 5 to 10 seconds to show just how this duo of like fighters is like getting ready to fight each other. It's not like it is like every other anime when it comes to that. I guess you could because there's like a flashing up, like zoom in on the eyes and the background's like whoosh, and you're like, oh man, what's going on? But they do it so majestically and it's so good. I remember episode one and what caught my interest. There's um, oh no, it wasn't episode one. It was season one when they shoot. I believe they shoot Dio or they shoot somebody that was like a freaking vampire. I can't remember. And he's like, they're standing next to each other and they look so like just crazy. They're just like we are awesome. And then it just breaks. Like they just immediately turn into like this. Oh crap, we're gonna die. uh, and I don't know, but ever since I saw that, and then just every episode has some sort of majesticness to the art style, in the way they do the characters, it just kept me going on that. And then sooner or later, you start getting into the actual story because, at first it's just like, I don't really 1800s. I mean, who likes stories in the 1800s? Not many people. I don't know. No, people love it, but personally, I'm just like, I don't know. It's not my
Yeah,
era.
it's not for you, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I freaking
But
love it.
JoJo made it
Yeah.
palatable for you, and that's what makes its greatness because it made something that you didn't like. I was about to sneeze. I'm sorry. It made something that
I was like, what the hell?
I almost sneezed. It made something that you didn't like attractive. And that's what good art does sometimes. It makes something that we don't necessarily gravitate towards interesting. We find ourselves gravitating towards it. So that's almost magical that JoJo was able to do that for you.
So at this point, I'm revealing my trap card that you have fallen into and talking about your current art that I have seen you post on Facebook.
Oh, I see. Well, that art isn't mine, and
I,
I want to make sure that I say that. Every time I post something that has artwork in it, I am not I don't have an illustrator's bone in my body. I cannot draw to save my life. If someone put a gun to my head and told me to draw a stick figure of a horse, I would die. They would put a bullet hole right in between my eyes because I wouldn't even be able to draw that. All
I
right,
mean,
conceptualize that. A man
yeah.
not being able to even draw a stick figure of a horse. That's me. Okay. So I make sure to credit artists and what they're able to accomplish as much as I can. Every time I want to put that out there, okay? Because I don't want anybody listening to think that I'm also an illustrator, that I'm also an artist. I am not. I am a writer, and that's it. That is the extent of my creative abilities, okay? If you go to any of my social media platforms and you see those posts, I make sure to credit the artist with a link directly to their work, and also any hashtags that might bring other people to see their work. So I celebrate illustrators and artists because what they do is magic.
All right, so there you have it. He will be accepting any artwork, so be sure to reach out to him and say, "I will do your art." No, that's one of the things that's great about writing. Writing is like the foundation that everything else can just like pile on top of, and art is one of those, one of the great, one of the greatnesses of what I, I'm messing up. I'm messing up
No,
that
I
freaking.
no, I know you don't have to apologize or explain yourself because I understood exactly what you were trying to say, and I
Yeah,
agree with you on it.
I feel really stupid saying greatness over and over. But that's exactly what is good about writing is you can stack art on top of that real quick. It's like here's my
Mhm.
story and here's the stick figure with the horse. You know?
The thing is, you're right, but the thing is, it also works the other way around. A writer can be inspired or think of a story through a piece of art, and that happens to me all the time. I'll be watching something, or I'm scrolling through Google or Facebook or wherever, and I see a picture, and that picture inspires maybe a 5-minute scene in my head or something, and then I'll write something based off of the picture that I saw,
Oh
and
yeah, and then
that's
it
what a lot of those
blossoms.
posts are. Yeah, exactly. There
Yeah.
we go. It blooms. That's exactly what those posts are. I see a picture that inspires me, if only for 60 seconds at a time. And I just write down the first thing that comes to my mind when I see the picture. And that's what they are. I'm celebrating the fact that art is inspiring me to create. I think that visual arts are just as important as literature.
Yeah, that's a interesting fact about when I was in college for music. That's one of the things they took us to dang the on campus. It took us to where the art students were, and they were just I started off with the wrong word there. They took us to the where the art students were, and they were just like, "All right, everybody, choose somebody and their artwork, and we're gonna make some music." And I'm just like, "Whoa, what?"
The
Obviously
massive
they.
curveball,
What's up?
the creative curveball.
Yeah, that was for me at the time. That's exactly what it was, and I was just like, ah, crap. There you go. I just like I tried my best. It wasn't my best work at the time, but it definitely like gave me a brain cell, of like how to do this with my music now. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, that's and I mean, what can we do with without the art? Technically, I guess what came first, art or the writing? And I guess you could say the art comes first because that's your first thing is what you see. You talk about it later.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would definitely agree with you because in prehistoric in the prehistoric world, languages had yet to be invented anyway. We
Yeah,
weren't able to communicate in a way that we do now, as elaborately as we do now. It was pictures that carried stories, written on walls, written on stones, written on slabs, on tree trunks, on bark. So
yeah.
I would probably argue that visual art came first as a way to communicate,
Written in the
and
blood of your
then
enemies too. Hmm?
what?
What?
I, I hate you.
I'm just
but
saying,
yeah,
man. There's different types of arts
it,
out there. That's all.
and then grunts evolved into moans, and then moans evolved into individual letters and sounds, and language progressed from there. And maybe you could argue that's where writing evolved from our ability to create language.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I got a text from work. Just like threw me off. It's a
It's okay.
oh Jesus. Oh, sweet, sweet. All right, okay, cool. It was like
What was the
made my
suite
day.
about? That was a massive suite.
Yes, because as you know, being in the military, you got to do what you got to do, right? Well, I just got a little bit
Sure.
of room to relax. It's just
Oh, cool, cool.
yeah. When you get those kind of texts, it's like the greatest feeling in the world. I don't know if anybody else is a vet listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That text about something you don't got to do or something you could just relax a little bit more on. It's the and it's
The
at every
standby to standby text.
yeah, and it's at every level, man. It could be from you're in brigade doing something stupid, and it's just like it's not that bad because all you're doing is this one thing. The one thing brigade expects you to do. You're the middleman. That's all you are. You don't really need to be there because you're the middleman. They don't need you
Yeah.
technically. Some lieutenant or some sergeant just doesn't want to do their job. That's all it is.
Right.
That's all. Yeah, but you still want that slight relaxation. uh,
True.
yeah,
True.
compared to being on the line or being I guess for y'all it'd be fleet life. Being in that 24/7, just like be here at this time. We're gonna be freaking I don't know, just 3 hour long. whatever
Yeah,
session.
yeah. I mean, you always treasure those times when you can not do anything because most of the time you find yourself either doing something important or doing something that's not so important, but you're forced to do it anyway.
Yeah, you know, you've different levels of just relaxation come in. One of them is, hey, we get a 20-minute water break. Thank God. The other one is like, thank God I don't got to get up in the morning anymore.
Yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Thank God I can stay in my barracks room for the rest of the day.
Yeah. So I just got that relaxation text, and man, life is good for now.
Well, I congratulate you, sir. I just gave you a salute.
Thank you, thank you. It's been a great interview. I appreciate you interviewing me. That's awesome. No, no, I'm just kidding. So let's see. We've covered a lot. Covered your stuff. We covered some the reason behind the restart, which I believe is necessary. There's because there was a lot of unanswered questions. I don't know. You probably covered it in your live stream, but I personally wasn't there, so it was for me if anything. um,
Mm.
and we've covered JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is an important topic. That's always. I, I'm
Yes, we
sorry,
did.
man. I couldn't get over it, Jonathan.
You know what? That just affirms the point. JoJo is everywhere. It's even bled into this interview. Can you just wrap your mind around that? JoJo bled into this. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh my head just exploded.
It's the power of somebody's stand from the show.
It's everywhere.
It's blood into Warhammer 40k. Do you know about Warhammer 40k? I should have asked that way earlier.
You know what? I am in love with Warhammer 40k, and I don't know a thing about Warhammer 40k. Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to tell me if I'm wrong. Okay,
Okay.
there is a there's a YouTube video that I saw called, and I'm probably gonna pronounce this entirely wrong, but the YouTube video is called Astartes, I think it is.
No, that's right.
Is that right? Okay, thank you, because I was afraid to butcher that for any Warhammer 40k fans because I have so much. I didn't know a thing. Okay,
You were the bandwagon with that video because that was the number one spot for a little while, and people fell in love with
it
it.
had millions. It had when I saw it, it had millions of views, and it wasn't the views that got me.
Of
What
course.
got me was the image, the thumbnail, the armor, the faceplate or whatever that the again, I don't know anything about Warcraft, but that soldier or whatever they are, that armor, the
Wait,
face
what?
armor.
Did you say you don't know anything about Warcraft? Wait,
Okay,
what?
no, I'm gonna tell you a story. I used to play Magic the Gathering, and I still love that game, even though I don't play it anymore.
Yeah,
But I used to play Magic the Gathering, and when I would go to my local Magic store, there would be tabletops of, there would be elaborate worlds that were created on these huge tables,
yeah.
and some of those tables had Warhammer. Uh, I don't know if it was Warhammer. I don't know
There,
if
there's
Warhammer 40.
yeah, there's the old one, and there's like the new era, old era.
Okay. Okay. There we go. I'm sure there are plenty of different Warhammers,
Wait,
but
wait. Let me correct myself because there are some people that may not like what I said. Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer 40k,
oh, he's gonna look.
Warhammer Ancient Times, Warhammer 40k,
Keep
30k,
going.
whatever.
Keep going. They're still listening. Keep going.
I guarantee you're gonna get somebody on your next live stream, on your next video. They're gonna say something about it's pronounced, and that's it.
You know
Or
what? I welcome that because you know what that tells me? That tells me that they're passionate about what they love, and I respect. You know what? I don't care what you enjoy. Some people may call being in love with Warhammer or Magic the Gathering or Lord of the Rings or whatever. Some people may call those things nerdy or whatever, but I think that it shows a lot about a person when they're very passionate about something and they're so passionate about it that they want to share that love that they have for that entity, for that
yeah,
brand with other people in a good way, in a lighthearted way,
yeah.
like
So
not
no, no. You're right. You're completely right because I'm definitely in love with Warhammer 40k, and I have like yeah I can't explain. No, I can explain perfectly how it goes when somebody doesn't know about it. Um,
Hmm.
when somebody doesn't know about the Marines, and the first thing they say is that lieutenant or whatever about a
Hmm.
major or about a captain, and you're like, there are so many things that would need to be explained just to get you on par with what is going on in this change of command ceremony or this change of command, like whatever it is. And one person
Sure.
pops in, they're just like, yeah, that lieutenant walking over there and touching the flag or whatever. And you're just like, not quite.
They're overly simplifying it.
Yeah, yeah. And the moment you said that you liked Astartes because of what it was, and that immediately clicked in my head for Warhammer 40k. I'm just like, there's so many things to
Dude,
explain.
dude, dude, dude,
uh,
after I saw that video, and I'm sorry for cutting you off again.
no, it's
I'm
fine.
sorry. But after I saw that video, I saw the thumbnail, the title too, the word
Yeah,
Astartes. That word really resonated with me somehow. The word was just very rich
the High
in
Gothic.
something. Yeah, I at the time I couldn't really explain what it was because I remember actually mulling over that word over and over. I looked at the word Astartes. It was very, I don't know, it just struck me somehow. And of course, the armor was very menacing. It was very, just everything about it kind of was very dark and gloomy and very, so I clicked on the thumbnail and I saw the video and oh my God, I was blown away. I can't, oh my, oh, I can't even
it's
tell you.
I it's definitely the atmosphere of Warhammer 40k because what they
That's
do
exactly what it
is it, they take the heavy influence from like Romans, from life. Like Warhammer 40k is constantly influenced by all sorts of things that have happened in life, from religions to events to the what Roman legionnaires would wear, and what because there's a few things you'll see that you'll be like, that's definitely Roman attire right there. Like, um,
is.
there's a lot of that, and they take a lot of those stories of like ancient heroes, and you'll see kind of like that how they carried themselves, the warrior aspect that was so alive back in the day before we had guns to kill each other. Like it took somebody to actually kill somebody else on the battlefield and live through it and want to do that. They take so much that is just great about life, and they turn it into this grim darkness of the future, like we're all gonna die. um, and I can't really explain how they write it because I'm sorry, I can't really explain how they write it because it gets second of time from now. Oh shit. Okay. I can't explain how they write because it gets very big and deep on so many different levels. But it has something for everybody, and it's like this. It's like this attitude you'll never see in life anymore because we're just not in that kind of society.
Mhm.
And that's where a lot of people get sucked in. It's just like, whoa, this guy is awesome, or holy crap, this guy or this alien guy, girl, whatever you want it to be, or whatever it is just so kicking ass, or has such a great is a great support character for the story, whatever it is, man. Then there's hours upon hours of lore to get into. There's so much to get into.
I believe you could probably spend a lifetime explaining the lore in Warhammer 40K.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, you probably could because I did watch a video after that. Astartes video wasn't the only video in that series. I think it was like 3 or 4 videos long of that, whoever had made that or whatever. And after I saw that whole series, I actually watched another video that explained the different factions in Warhammer 40K. And let me tell you, aside from the fact that, of course, I'm not an avid Warhammer 40K fan, I'm not even a casual Warhammer 40K fan. The video that I saw was so dense in explaining the different factions that I couldn't tell you a word about what any of those factions were. I don't remember because there was so much information to process and to, you know, to wade through it,
Yeah.
that's what it felt like when I was getting, because there was so much meat there that it felt like I was wading through a waist deep swamp just full of all this muck, but the muck wasn't the disgusting kind of muck. It was, it's just there's so much lore there because I'd imagine that it was probably made around the same time as Magic the Gathering in the early 90s, probably, right?
Uh,
Warhammer is
it's 80s, I believe. I don't know the exact date, but 80s for sure.
I I believe it. It just there's no way that something that rich in lore hasn't been around for a long time. So it has that history,
Yeah.
it almost like its storylines have lineage. Their lineage is in themselves, so yeah, I have a lot of respect for Warhammer 40K because it was able to make me fall in love with it so quickly. You know, I won't. I probably will never play a tabletop game. I will never play a session of Warhammer 40K. I
Yeah.
will probably never read any of the books. I'll probably never watch another video about it ever again. But what I can say is that what I have seen of Warhammer 40K, I fell in love with. And I say that without a doubt,
Yeah.
without hesitation.
Well, I'm gonna speak for a lot of your maybe a lot of your fans, maybe not. I don't know. I'm gonna speak for some fans here when I say you need to read or you need to listen to at least three books, at least three. I mean, I'm gonna send you the link when we're done with this. I'm gonna
Okay.
send you the link
Okay, cool.
for at least three good ones. And the YouTuber that I listen to, his name is a Border Prince. He constantly puts out audio, like he reads the books and he just like pretty much narrates them and does voices for him and all that. But not narrates. He reads directly from the book. I don't know where I was going with that, but he puts them out on his channel, and it's just the book, and you don't have to read it. You can just listen to it. But there's so many good books. There's a lot of people that don't even get into the lore. They just paint the models, or they just draw. They draw for Warhammer 40K artwork, and they don't even know anything about it. They're just like, I like the way it looks. Here it is.
And that honestly, that astounds me in itself. Like how, don't get me wrong, like it is so visually striking that I can understand why some people do that because people do the same with like Gundam models and things like that, right? They don't know
Yeah.
anything about the universes where these machines come from, but they just love the way it looks so much that they collect the miniatures, they collect the figurines. So I understand that aspect, but Warhammer is not like Gundam in the sense that like if I saw a Warhammer figurine and I bought it and I invested a lot of energy in essentially bringing that figurine to life, I would want to know the lore behind that figurine. I would want to know what it's called, where it comes from, the hit, who it's fought with, maybe even if it's died. Is this dead? Am I bringing dead hero to life? Like am I honoring its memory? In fiction,
and
like
and
that blows my mind.
in Warhammer 40K, everybody dies except the Emperor, and like a few others, but almost everybody starts dying.
So it's a completely dreary universe. That's what you're
it
saying.
it is beyond belief. I don't know about not new books coming out. There was a time when like the old authors were pretty much great, and they were the only ones doing it, and or I don't know if they were
Mhm.
the only ones, but they were just doing some great work. But the new era came in, and the books have kind of they're not as good to personally from my point of view. There's some good ones. The best thing I can describe is there's a huge turning point in the lore called I believe the book is called A Gathering Storm, and it's a it's like a huge turning point. I personally thought it was great, but there were so many things that were just like you know just like plot. plot saves. They weren't really like invested
Mm.
in just making it a good story. It just seemed like they were just throwing it in there just to make up for all the crap that didn't make sense. um,
Mm.
like how could these guys make it out? Well, these guys showed up, and then these guys showed up,
Mm.
and it's just like, all right, okay, this is getting childish. That's a,
I see. I see.
yeah. So
And would you also say, and this is just from my curiosity, would you also say, because if you say that if Warhammer has been around since, the late 80s or early 90s or however long it's been around,
uh,
would you also say that the current generation of books, that their language is different from those
oh,
earlier
yeah, it completely
novels?
is. There's a book the first like new generation book I read was, I believe, called Emperor's Gift, and it was about the Grey Knights, which I love following. Like the old Grey Knight books were just like they're phenomenal. And then I saw the New Age one. I was like, oh sweet, another Grey Knight book. Let me read this, and it was just it was, I want to say, Hollywood style
Mhm.
writing. Where the hero isn't fully liked, but he's great at what he does. He makes a few mistakes, and they're just like, "Come on, get it together, Ramirez." And it's that wasn't his name. I'm just using that name. And then
That was
the guy like goes through some struggle, I think, and then he just starts to pick up. But it's all related to 40K. Like they're still greatness. They're still awesome at what they do. They're Space Marines, so what you saw in the Starties is what they do. They're like great at what they do at killing. And at his level, he's struggling to do something. I don't remember, but at the end of the book, it it turned literally into a scene from any typical movie where it's just like I don't know how to describe it. It was just so
all,
freaking
all of where all of a sudden he's great at everything and he's become like the savior or something.
well, kind of like he's just looking at what has happened, and it's just you zoom out from the victory kind of feel. Like he was,
Hmm.
because at the end of the book, I remember distinctively what happens. He rings the bell. I believe it was the bell of remembrance for like the fallen that had died. And one of his buddies was there or something. He's like, "This is for you, bang!" And then that's the end of the book, kind of thing. And I was just like, What the? What is this bullcrap?" This isn't the 40K I know. The old 40K Grey Knight books, the first book was amazing. Like the hero was, he had that support, that kind of a crutch to learn from. The guy was a
Wait, don't spoil it for me because after this, you've enticed me enough where I'm most likely going to go
crap.
and swallow the first book whole. I'm probably going to go the book that you mentioned about the Gray Knights. Is that one of the earlier um
uh,
40K
so
books?
so the Grey Knights is a faction. It's kind of like a small special, no, not special. Small unit tactics is kind of like what they do.
Mhm.
They're like insertions. They like
They're infantry.
Yeah, well, there's I can't go too far into that without having to explain a
Oh no,
crap ton of
I
things.
I I overly simplified it. I did
Yeah,
it this time.
yeah, and I say that because everything there's too much to explain for you to understand exactly. So I'm simplifying it
I
into a
see.
military aspect. So
I
think
see.
of Delta, Marsoc, SEALs, kind of like that, but
Special
uh,
forces.
yeah, but they're like called upon, even more at a higher level than that, because
Hmm.
like they deal with demons in the universe of Warhammer 40K, and they're like that's pretty much all they're really called for is like demons. So they help out all
Wow.
these other people and all this stuff, but you hardly see them anywhere. So they're even more of a rarity compared to like the Space Marines and in the lore. Um, it'll all
Hmm.
make sense once you start understanding Warhammer 40K. But
Okay,
so
okay, okay,
first,
okay.
but what you need to understand though is if you see like Blood Angels, Ultramarines, those are faction, those are Space Marine chapters that have numerous books. Like all these things that they have in the lore have tons of books. Like there's a alien species and they call them Xenos, called the Eldar. They have books. It's not just like one book. It's a bunch of different
Hmm.
books. Uh, I think I don't know if there's orc books. I could be wrong. But there's like numerous books for Imperial Guard. Uh, there's just so many different points of view that are written and turned into books that you you should most likely hit the ones from back in the day, the older generation ones. Um, you shouldn't really.
I definitely would. I definitely would, probably because I would probably enjoy the language and
No,
how.
I mean, you should be getting it regardless. There's like so many older books. There's like, I mean, there's newer ones coming out, but you're probably gonna run into an older one first, out of, I believe, uh, just out of the vastness of however how many there were written back in the day compared to being written now.
That's
I'm
mind blowing.
Yeah, like I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna correct me on all of this, which is great because I don't follow the authors and what they do for Warhammer 40K. Because there's a lot. One of my favorite ones is Ben Counter. Um, I think he's the one that wrote the Grey Knight series. But just look for a Grey Knight Omnibus, whatever it's
Gray
pronounced.
Knight. Well, I have my computer in front of me now. I'll look it up now. Gray Knight Omnibus.
Yeah, it's like it's books 1 through 3 for the Grey Knights, and that's you'll see those are the older ones. And but anyways, you know they're just written pretty good. I can't say that the language is extremely different. The language is pretty similar, but there is a difference that I've seen, especially with one of the great series that I thought that I started with was Dawn of War. Dawn of War was a game also, and that's how I got into Warhammer 40K. And then the books, I saw there were books. So I was like, oh shit, there's books. So I started reading them, and I was like, these are great. The game followed this directly, or the other way around. I didn't know at the time. And then, wait, I still don't know. So I'm pretty sure the books came out, then the game came out. But anyways, I was reading through. I was like, this is awesome. The part two comes out, and I think the game came out first before the book because the book is written very sloppy compared to the older books.
Really?
Yeah, and that's part of the difference that I'm talking about when it comes to the new age to the old age. The language is you can tell it's different. The diction, it's completely
That
getting.
that's that's exactly what I mean. That's probably what I would enjoy most about experiencing those earlier works, because language evolves, and you could argue that language, especially in novels, has gotten more simplistic over time. And
Yeah.
I tend to enjoy more dense, antiquated language. And just looking over some of the pictures that I see of some of these older books, I'm actually looking through them right now. They actually remind me of a lot of old time fantasy books that I used to read.
Yeah.
And those books were maybe almost like 500 pages long, and the language in them sounded like you were being told a story from this ancient civilization, you know?
Yeah, that's the feel you get from those older books. I don't even get started on the artwork, man. I mean, I
Artwork is
follow
spectacular.
I follow a lot of
Just from what I'm seeing,
what?
just from what I'm seeing, this artwork is mind blowing, man. I use that word twice now, but that's
Yeah,
all I
it's
can think of.
yeah. If it was a gun, it could kill you. That's how great it
Yeah,
is.
no, absolutely, absolutely. That's the perfect way to describe it.
Yeah, that's so the old artwork is amazing. Uh, I've heard some rocky, comments about the new stuff, especially since they've teamed up with Marvel.
Oh
um,
wow.
yeah, don't feel too excited on that. I wouldn't. It's not the greatest thing, man. From what I've seen, that. And I don't know. Maybe some people like it. Maybe it's more.
Oh, I see. It looks more cartoon. It doesn't look as realistic anymore. It looks very cartoony.
And that is fine. The design is great. It could still
It's
hold,
also
but
the color palette
yes,
also look it doesn't look as dreary. It looks more it's brighter and
That's my
uh,
issue with it. Like, I have nothing against design, because my lead artist for my audio drama called The Heathen's Intent, which is a Warhammer 40K audio drama, you know,
oh,
yeah, I was gonna talk to you about that offline, but you know, we could get into that. I could throw a little bit of a of a
talk
chip.
away.
Yeah, so well, yeah, so the Warhammer 40K audio drama unofficial, um, is it's called The Heathen's Intent, and my lead artist is doing a phenomenal work, and he's taking suggestions from people who are tabletop gamers and things about like the designs, and I told him like, look, man, I want your design. I don't want other people's designs on what it should look like. I don't, I'm not too worried about it because you stick to it, which is great. But I want the artists to do their rendition of what I give them.
Sure.
For my project, not for their project. So that's what.
That's why you went to him.
Yeah, that's exactly what I tried telling him, and he's just like, "Oh, I understand, and I appreciate you, keeping me on the project." But that fan artists are so good at like making Warhammer 40K images compared to what you're seeing now. And a majority of like the hired artists are great. They're not bad, but like that Marvel and Games Workshop or whoever it is teaming up, I'm pretty sure Games Workshop is teamed up with them, but it's just it's such a it's such a downer compared to the rest. Uh, oh,
You,
God.
it's funny that you say that because you can actually draw direct comparisons between what I'm looking at in the Marvel crossovers that I'm looking at with Warhammer
Yeah,
and old Warhammer. Old Warhammer, there's an ultra realism to it that makes it feel like this could be real. Like this could actually have existed or even exist in the present time in another universe and another multiverse,
it
right?
it's yeah. I mean, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And it looks so ultra realistic that it's easy to think that it's easy to actually have these worlds blend with reality. But when you turn it into something that resembles obvious fiction, it's easier to kind of separate yourself emotionally from the material, especially if you're so used to that ultra realism, that gnarly, bloody, just you look at a picture
Yeah,
and you can feel the sweat falling down someone's, bloody forehead yourself, like that sense of desperation isn't really portrayed as well in such colorful,
yeah.
well-rounded, because it almost reminds me of the difference between, I don't know if you know who Alex Ross is, the DC art or the artist that
Oh,
um,
I've heard the name actually. Uh,
he's a wonderful artist who makes work for various DC projects, and one of his biggest is a graphic novel or a comic, excuse me, called Injustice.
yeah.
And this is the first time I was ever introduced to his work, but his ultra realistic take on superheroes made me look at them in a different light when I was younger because I was so used to seeing them as obvious fictional characters through these, wildly colorful, overly exaggerated portrayals of things that can
You,
crumble entire buildings,
you know,
and run past
uh,
a bullet.
yeah, what you're describing. You know what it does is like it touches your soul on a certain level when you see it in
Sure.
that perspective. That style, it just really gets to you, especially
It
as a
looks
kid.
real.
Yeah, because
It's
it does look
actually
real, and you're just like trying to understand it. It's like seeing a dead body for the first time. You're like, whoa, what is
that's
this?
deep. That's
uh,
that's deep. That's deep. But no, you're yeah, and again, I apologize because sometimes I do talk too much. I kind of talk in a circle because I'm trying to find a way to explain my point in the best way possible.
Sorry, man, I got
But
trap cards everywhere. Just ready
but
to throw them out.
that's what it reminds me of, man. And I think that what you said is so important. It's okay for people to have styles and to prefer different things. Like, it's okay for you to not like an ultra realistic take on your favorite fantasy genre or science fiction genre or whatever. If you enjoy a different take on it, that's okay. But me personally, I definitely am in love with the gory, ultra realistic, highly detailed images of Warhammer that I'm seeing on my laptop. I prefer that over the, more Marvel-y, traditionally comic booky portrayal of things that are honestly representative of gloom and doom and death and regret and angst and sorrow. Like, all of those words I get from looking at these
Yeah. Yeah, you're
old art.
understand. He's beginning to believe.
No, but those words come off of that art. Like, you just you kind of, you don't even look at it and feel good. Like, you feel sad for the person that you're looking at, that's
that
covered
that's
in armor.
exactly what Warhammer 40K brings in their books. That's exactly the atmosphere that you feel from it. You don't get the happy endings, and that's what's happening with some current books. They're getting the happy endings, but they're getting it too Hollywood style, where it's just like everybody's happy, or well, to an extent, uh, things are going good. We're now smooth. It's a smooth sailing from here. And that's what I'm trying to. I guess what you've done is you've explained what I was trying to explain earlier about the differences between the old style writing to the new style writing. From what I've seen, there's just like a happy ending in some way, and that's not Warhammer 40K. From what I've read, it's like we've accomplished what we've accomplished. We remember the dead. Now let's keep going, and you're just like, crap. Y'all gonna take
Yeah,
a break? Like, yeah, y'all
that's
gonna
depressing to say it like that. Like, it's really depressing. It
yeah,
is,
yeah, and
because because these people, th- all they know, all they know, their reality is so buried, is so sunken in the idea of death, that death doesn't affect their psyches anymore. Like, when someone is not affected by the idea of death anymore, and they look forward to the act again, or they don't hesitate to put on their armor and go towards something that could be their gruesome demise again and again and again, that speaks volumes about what world they live in,
yeah,
and you get that just by looking at the art. And I get what you're saying.
yeah. That's exactly what they've done from like real life perspective. Is they've taken that and they've turned it into a this giant lore. Because that's what they always say. There's always a quick I forget what that word is, but there's a quick like description of just it's the 41st millennium. There is only war. Blah 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 blah. This is happening. This is happening. This is happening. Here is our story. And that's kind of like, and that's in
That's
like every
brutal.
book. um, and
That's
yeah, go
man.
ahead.
That's metal, man. That's brutal.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They're setting the tone for this novel that you're about to go on, and learn to love these characters, learn to love what's going on, and hate what they hate. But then they survive this one, they survive that one, but then the third book they're dead, and you're like, what?
Oh,
you know
that's fucked up, man.
that happens so much, and they don't
That's so messed up.
they one of my friends has compared it to The Walking Dead, of how often they kill people off, but I
It's it,
personally I
it
personally think it's not too close to it. I think it's so Red Dead Redemption, the first game style of killing people off. I don't know if you've played that.
Well, I have played Red Dead Redemption, and I think the difference might be in the way that characters are built and
Yeah,
before they die. It honestly, everything at the end of the day boils down to how a character is built. What we see here, what you've described to me, ha- give introducing an audience to a character and then taking that character away from them forever. That's a classic technique in literature.
yeah,
You make someone fall in love with a character and then you take them away. What makes that trope, that technique better, in certain mediums or in certain brands is the way that the characters that are being taken away are built, you know. And Warhammer, from what you've described to me, you know, they obviously use the same technique as The Walking Dead, but I'm just guessing that the way that the characters that are being taken away are built are better than the show that you're saying. If you're talking about The Walking Dead show, you know, it's
Yeah,
probably apples to oranges the way that Warhammer introduces a character and then takes them away. There's a finesse to it. There's a nuance to that technique that when done perfectly, when done professionally, can make you cry, you know, can make you, you know,
yeah,
even if you're reading it, even when you're not watching it, like it'll break you down and actually depress you, you know. That's when you know that the character that was just wrestled from your heart was built properly. And it looks like Warhammer does that very well.
yeah, man. It does. You, I don't wanna spoil too many books or spoil too much because when you
Well,
start
you've
getting
already spoiled it. Everybody dies. You've already spoiled it.
okay, Sean Bean, slow down on the death there. People die. All right, don't get me wrong. People do die. Uh,
Oh my.
but there's I I've so one of the biggest influences from 40K that I want to say has kind of like gone around. um, and it's not extremely well known. He made it unlisted, but a big influence that's gone around that has like shown a part of the. So you're gonna get completely confused. They've shown Warhammer 30K.
30K?
Yes, yes. There's a whole 10,000 years before 40K. It's surprising, but it existed, and they've written about it. Um, so they have a whole story, the tragedy. It's heartbreaking. I think it's still going. I don't even think it's finished yet. But they're like writing it, and they've made some updates. But so this guy has done an animation from one of the stories at that time called Death of Hope, and it just like has been a huge influence on the evil side of like what evil side for Warhammer. Um, but there is just so much, man. There, like even just telling you that there's a 30K, there's so much more to explain. They have hinted at, and I'm pretty sure they've written a little bit, but not enough about the universe prior to humans existing, and there's ancient races. One of them is still around that's actually making a big impact today in the lore, and the other one has died off because they killed him off. But man,
Hmm.
there is just so much to talk about. And I still got time to talk because like I don't know if you want like it, but we'll take a quick pause to discuss
Oh,
where are we taking the rest of this conversation.
okay.
So, we've discussed your content. We've discussed I don't even know where I was going with that last statement, but we've discussed your content. We've discussed your potential.
Warhammer fan. It's okay.
Yes, I am. We discussed your potential for podcasting, the whys behind your revamp. Um, Before we move further, well, you know what? I'm gonna save it for last. All right. So where would you like to go, good sir? We can continue down this Warhammer path, or we could gear this to I don't know, anything else.
We can talk about whatever you want to talk about, man. Honestly, it doesn't matter if we talk about Warhammer because Warhammer is actually fueling my literature fire. It's
It does. That's why I've written what I've written. I'm doing a 10-part series audio drama,
damn.
and it started. I was already deep. I'm already deep into the lore at this point in time. But I went to ALC, which is like the school you need before you can become a staff sergeant, right? And
Mhm.
I'm waiting at the airport. I'm coming back home, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and write a story about Warhammer 40k because I wanted to get into that. I had been writing numerous and tons of other stories, but Warhammer 40k I never wrote because the way they do it is so good. I just
Mm,
I didn't
mm,
know how to get into that. So what I did
mm.
was I wrote the characters first because that's clearly what is gonna make any Warhammer story. Like that's what's gonna make it.
Sure.
Uh, and I wrote the good guys, or well, the people who are good for mankind. They're called Space Marines, the loyal ones. There's ones that turned against mankind called Chaos Space Marines. They worship the gods of chaos. Um, but the loyal Space Marines are who I started off with, and I kind of formed it around what I do in the army now, and I kind of made a faction slightly or a chapter that's supposed to be kind of like what I do now in the army, and I just went off with this, and I was like, man, I'm gonna make a 10-part series. I do audio dramas. I'm gonna turn it into an audio drama. I still need
Hmm.
narration though, because I'm not gonna have like all this noise happen, and then people are like, "What's going on?" uh, so you're gonna hear like crashing and shooting. And you're like, all right, what the hell just happened? But so uh, you know, part one, the prelude, those two are out. I'm working on part two, and dude, I can't just explain how much the lore, the stories, the pictures, everything fuels your need to write. Like that just comes in so naturally when you start just researching Warhammer 40k, and
Yeah.
it starts sparking off just numerous ideas on your own current stories, even if they're not 40k related. You get inspired by the things you read or you see, um, and it's becoming. I joke about this, but it could be true. Uh, it's becoming a cult of its own, and it's just really funny because in the lore, mankind is the God dang, how did I forget this? The imperial cult. uh, it's like because they worship the emperor, who is a guy who's been alive since like mankind's been around. I think they knocked
What?
down. Yeah, they've created. The point is, mankind wasn't the first like species. Obviously, there was the prior one, um, and there's these ancient species called the Old Ones. They started creating life, and they could go through this thing called the warp, and the warp is kind of like a parallel universe. You could think of it as, and
Hmm.
they would travel through it, and then they discovered another ancient species, or not an ancient. It was around their time, and they're just like, "Hey, we need help. We're dying constantly. We need help. How to live like you live. We want to live for a long time." And they're just like, "No, we're not going to help you." So
Damn.
they get pissed off and they start having a war with them, but they're losing the war. They're called the Necroteers. They're losing. Um, they discover that the reason why they've been dying so much on their homeworld, because there's radiation like burning their lives short, is there's a celestial being called a Satan, and it's like a god. And they find a way to contact this god, and they're like, "Hey, we need help." And the god's like, "Well, all right, I'll see what I can do." And um, the god goes and like helps them out, and I think it like embodies them, and then the god realizes what it's like to be immortal, and the hunger, the constant like need to be alive or something. I can't fully remember what it was. It like sparks this fuel, or this rage of like want, this just need, just wants, and to end this god. And this god's like, "Whoa, I liked what I felt. I'm gonna do it again. I will help you guys out." Blah 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 blah. They create these cybernetic kind of bodies to let the gods stay in, and they help them out, and they start fighting the war, winning against the old ones. And then I don't fully remember this part, but there's like a deceiver that ends up like betraying the Necroteers once they beat the old ones, and they're like, "All right, now we're gonna kill each other because we want it. Like are so hungry, and we're just like killing and killing." Um,
That's tragic.
That's like a really hazy kind of like summary of the war in heaven is what that's called. Uh,
Hmm.
and the old ones created different races to help them fight the Necrons or the Necroteers, who later turn into the Necrons. But these ancient
So
race, yeah, go ahead.
so that's the origin of. I don't know if you saw the pictures that I sent you
No,
on the.
that what you sent me is Space Marines. Oh, those are Ultramarine, the Ultramarine chapters. That top
Oh.
one's yeah. Those are way after the War in Heaven. The one
Oh.
below, yeah, the one below with the Ultramarine that looks tired. Um,
Yeah.
that artist created that because they said they wanted to show the human side of Space Marines. The Space Marine is a
Uh,
bio enhanced human who, at a young age, took on a surgery and a process that turns you into this massive, like muscled, enhanced human. We're talking three hearts, two or no, two hearts, three lungs. Just
Jeez
yeah, just
Christ.
enhanced human to fight off the other species in the galaxy, to fight off the enemy, and that I'll get to that part. so, uh,
Wait, wait, so what is okay, I from what you've told me about the war of the heavens or the war in the heavens, I understand that, but what is everybody fighting over like in the pictures that I sent like in current what
okay,
like why is everyone killing each other? Like what's the main why? Like what's the main thing? Why is
all right. So you got to understand a little bit of the background of the species. That Ultramarine, what he's holding. And these pictures will be on screen video. Hopefully, yeah, I'm gonna put these in there so people know what we're looking at. Um, he's holding an orc head, and orcs how were created. This is where the old ones come in, the ancient race that lost that war in heaven. Um,
Mhm.
the orcs were created, or crocs. Quarks. I can't remember what they were called. They weren't orcs at the time. Like they were changes. But they were created to help fight the Necroteer because the old ones themselves couldn't really. They were losing that war. Um, as a necro as a nec- as the Satan and the Necrontyr teamed up, the old ones started to lose the war, and they started creating species to help them fight. One of them was Eldar, who are still around today, but they're kind of hidden, but they still fight. They're not full force like trying to take stuff out. Um, but so the orcs were just made to fight, and they ended up spanning off, doing their own thing. They turned into like this, if I remember correctly, they were really intelligent to be able to adapt to having literally nothing to fight. Like
Mm,
they're a
very
fungus.
primitive.
Yeah, so they're like a fungus that grows, which is why they're green. And they what they do is
Huh.
they're 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 really smart. They really are, but they're dumb because when they're in fighting mode, that's all they want. Like they're geared to fight. Like
Mm,
that is how we're geared to reproduce and live for to survive. Like we all
mhm,
do things for ourselves to survive. They're geared to
mhm,
fight. If they don't
hmm.
fight, they die. Like they become malnourished. They become lethargic. They die off.
Wow.
But yeah, like that's why orcs fight. So there's no explanation for them except they fight to live. so, uh,
That's all the explanation you need.
yeah, that's them. And they were created by the old ones. Like almost everybody was created by the old ones. The
Okay.
the Eldar, they when they won the war in heaven, and the old ones got wiped out. The Eldar were just living to live. They had nothing better to do, and so there is a good kind of theory behind it. I'm pretty sure it's been explained, but from what I've gathered, is the Eldar had this like moment of euphoria, kind of, like we're here, we've reached the end, like we are the champions now. What else is there to do? And like what else? Like we have all this. We need something more. We need more. And then pain became a thing, and it's just like, all right, I kind of like that. Let's do it again. And it became more of
Wow.
a thing, and they started excess. Just like let's keep doing this. And So the Eldar had a civil war, and half of them, uh, they all like created a god, and there's a whole thing that I would have to explain for that. But before I get into that, they created a god, and they half of them like worshiped the god, and the other ones didn't want to because they realized what they were doing. They're like, oh shit, let's not do that. So
Yeah.
there's Eldar, and then there's Dark Eldar, who are now like, all right, we're gonna keep worshiping this god, and they're like S&M style. You know what I
That's what
mean?
it sounds like. That's what I was about to say. It sounds like they became a bunch of sadomasochists.
That's all they are basically. I don't know their intents and their the reasons they do what they do, but they worship Slanesh, who is a chaos god. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, the Space Marines were obviously created by the Emperor. The Emperor was the original lore that I know was kind of accepted. Was there were a bunch of shamans that all came together, and they realized when they would die, they wouldn't come back anymore. Reincarnation wasn't happening, and it turned
Hmm.
out the warp, where spirits would go and things like that, was becoming more chaotic, which is the chaos gods were coming in. Because as emotions spur off, and if somebody's strong enough in this emotion, like if I hate you enough, like with enough of my life and enough of my will, I can turn that into a demon that like forms
Hmm.
into the warp, and the demon like feeds off your energy of hate of whatever emotion that you it was created out of, and then if I learn my ways, I can summon that demon into reality to fight. To fight with me.
Wow.
It might kill me if I don't know what I'm doing, but like I can summon these demons. So that little information right there turned that into a grand scale of now gods are being created because enough emotion is happening, enough anger,
Hmm.
enough war has manifested into the warp as a chaos god, and his name is Korn, and he's a god of war, god of anger, and whatever you want to think of, but
Sure.
he is about killing and just the fight and the bloodshed and the skulls, and like he's blood for the blood god. That's his chant. uh,
Jesus Christ.
and then there's a few other gods. There's a Nurgle, who is the god of decay, which I know for a fact was created during the Black Plague in human times. And then
Really?
yeah, it's interesting. I love Nurgle. Nurgle's my personal favorite. Nurgle promises you a life after death if you worship him. Basically, you just become a zombie. That's kind of his style.
Jesus
Uh,
Christ.
but
Lord.
but he loves all living things. But his love is exactly that. Plagues and everlasting like zombiness kind of. Each god has like a variety of things that happen. Like it's not just a
They sound
plague,
complex.
huh?
They sound complex.
Yeah. Each god has its own complexity to it.
Hmm.
But the next god, Zench, who is a god of change, a god of constant, like like constant betrayal, constant like just like what do you call the best way to describe Zench is like you never it is like
He's untrustworthy. He's deceitful.
yeah, and he's betrayed so many people so many times, but like you just it's like he knows everything, and you never know his motive for what he does, but he
So he's
promises you
unpredictable.
what's up.
He's unpredictable.
Yeah, and it's such a unique like reason for a god that I think I'm like when I look at it, I'm like, this is so awesome because it's a god that you
Hmm.
cannot actually trust, but people worship this god. uh, so
That happens. Unfortunately, that happens all the time, even in the real world. So
I
I
know, right?
believe that.
uh,
Unfortunately.
yeah, and it's great because like this god promises you so much, and you get it, but then at the end you're still betrayed. So or it changes. He may not betray you. It's just things change. That's his thing.
Hmm.
And it's great because it's like, well, it changes, man. I told you.
Sounds
So
like a person that gets bored way too easily.
yeah. And so the next god, Slanesh, is the S&M god, the god of excess. And it's not just sexual things or pain; it's just excess in everything. Uh,
Hmm.
there is an awesome space marine. They're called Primarchs. The Emperor created. Because the Emperor's lived for so long, he creates these. He learned a lot about science and started realizing that he needed to start preparing mankind for this future of freaking death and war that's going to happen. So he creates the Primarchs, just 20 Primarchs. These Primarchs are from his genetic makeup, and then they get snatched away by the gods of chaos. Because the gods of chaos realize if all these Primarchs are still on Earth, by the time they're fully grown, we're gonna freaking lose. Whatever the reason is. So they scatter them to the four winds of the galaxy, and the Emperor has to go around after he unified mankind, because mankind at this point was like not unified, but they had branched out into the galaxy. So we're at
Wait, this takes place in throughout the whole universe?
yeah, the whole universe. It's not just like one part of the
Oh my
galaxy.
god.
Yeah, which is why there's so much to explain. uh, the
That is that's like what? That's
it's funny.
incomprehensibly massive.
It is comprehensively massive. You want to know why? Because there is a massive, very huge species attacking the galaxy right now on all sides. It's the scary part of it for everybody in Warhammer 40k lore right now, which is why things are like changing so much, because they're like, all right, this is a big threat.
Hmm.
The Tyranids, which are a massive like bug species, they're coming in from all sides of the galaxy. There's not one side that they're not coming in from. So
So
out,
they're threatening every species, everybody.
yeah, anything that has got some sort of way to enhance their physical nature, like because what they do is they swarm a planet, they eat everything, and then like whatever is valuable, they take it into the genetic code, and the whole hive turns into like it morphs, to a better killing machine. That's all they are. They're called like the Great Devourers. Like that's all they do is kill, eat, get better, and fight on to the next planet to repeat the process. Um, they're coming in
Kind
from
of like they call them the Zerg in
yeah,
that game.
yeah,
Uh
StarCraft.
yeah. Yeah, I'm obviously they have their differences, but the way they do things is it's very similar like that.
Sort of. There's no identified like sentient well no there's a few I think there's a few sentient like units here and there, but
But
overall
they're
yeah,
just as ruthless as, they just kill and take
yeah,
over.
yeah, they're not like
Uh,
talking to you, and they're connected to the
hmm.
hive mind, and they can't deviate from. Well, they have some ability to deviate from the hive mind. There's like a few. One of them specifically is like a gene stealer. That one knows that it should like hide, wait, blend into the world until it's ready to go ahead and devour the world. Like there's a few select here and there that can do that, but
What are they called again? What's the name?
gene stealers, and they're a cool like body snatcher style tyrannid. Like the original gene stealer can't change the way they look, but like the further generations, when he starts getting more, they can look more human. There's like something off about them. They may have two eyes like next to each other, and then a third eye on the further away. There's like just something
Uh,
different about them. Um, so some of them have some sort of sentience, but overall the hive mind is like in charge of everything, and there seems to be no end to these Tyranids, and there's just so much. There's so much about
where did
Tyranids,
they come from?
huh?
Where did they come from?
Outside the galaxy, nobody knows.
How is that possible?
So,
How's what
so
they
here's
came
my
from,
here's my
they're
theory
threatening.
on that. There's a theory on that, man, that I got that other people got maybe, but my theory about the Tyranids coming in from all sides of the galaxy. So there's like one old one. Maybe I've not got it yet. Okay. There's like one old one that survived, I believe, the whole war in heaven. I believe I
Oh,
believe that old one took off to another place somewhere outside the galaxy and decided, all right,
before
I'm
it was
gonna just,
killed.
huh?
Before it was killed.
Yeah, yeah, and it took off and said, you know what? I'm gonna restart this galaxy. I hate this place, and created the Tyranids to wipe out the galaxy. That's what I believe. A simplified version of like where they're coming from.
I mean, it's plausible. It makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty
From
sure
what
they.
you told me, your theory makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and I kind of hope that's what it is, but I could be completely wrong. Like they might just be like, it's just a random species that's been devouring galaxies.
Well, I'm looking at art of them, and yeah, they definitely look as fearsome as you described.
Yeah, hold on, give me 1 second.
Yeah, they look like a cross section of all of these different terrifying horror things. Like some of them look like they have aspects of the xenomorph, and mixed with like a praying mantis mixed with
There's so many different things about the
yeah,
Tyranids.
they look horrifying for sure.
What I like about them is like their guns are a part of their bodies. It's like
I see that. I see that. Yeah, I see that in some of the artwork. That's crazy.
that's
That is
wild.
wild. Yeah, wild is the word. I was about to cuss again.
Yeah. So
Wild is the
yeah. So everybody's got their reasons. There's a young species called the Tau. They're just trying to be a regular civilization, but they don't have warp travel. Warp travel is when you can go through the hell, the parallel universe, without getting killed by the demons, and you appear on whatever side of the galaxy you're trying to go to. Mankind needs help from psychic people called astropaths to navigate them through the warp, because it's a massive thing. Oh yeah, it's a good picture of the Tyranids, man. So that's from
that's
Dawn of War 2,
crazy.
obviously.
Crazy.
Yeah, that's a good representation of just what they are. It's a massive swarm. But so yeah, they travel through the warp, do their thing. The Tau can't do it, so they're not a big civilization, but they're still a threat, and they've actually come into contact with mankind periodically. Have some wars, have some allies every now and then, and that's the craziness. The little you know cog in the or no wrench in the machine is like, hey, they've allied together, and you're like, what? Like why? What? Oh, no, why would they do that? And then there's an explanation. It's like it's not really an alliance. It's like an acceptance. We can't do this without you, but we're gonna kill you. We're gonna kill you. And the other team's
Yeah.
saying the same thing. Like we're gonna kill you too.
Right, right.
uh,
Interesting.
yeah, so it's pretty cool. I don't know too much about what's going on currently. I know the Necrons have awoken, because they were the ancient species that that ended up wiping out the old ones, and the Eldar went off and hid in the warp or wherever they hid off to. So the Necrons were like, all right, we're gonna hide. We're not gonna hide. We're gonna shut down in these worlds that we've taken over, and when the time comes, we'll awaken. And periodically mankind has stumbled across them, and they've accidentally awoken them prematurely, so they've had to fight them off. The Eldar usually come in to try and shut them up, uh, and then oh wow, yeah, that's definitely that actually reminds me of StarCraft. That picture right there.
What in
Um,
the
that's a Tyranid invasion for sure. Looks like some flying
that
Tyranids.
that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable, man.
There's so many different ones, dude. There in each like artist that I've seen do art like that has made, no matter what it is, doesn't have to be Space Marines. It could be orcs or you know any other ones, even Imperial Guard, who are just the Imperial Guard is just normal humans. They're not enhanced. They're just the people.
Really?
Yeah, they're just mankind. That's mankind's military. Astro
Wow.
Millip, I can't remember. Astro Millipatha, something like that. But Imperial Guard is like constantly everywhere because that's who's running the homeworlds most of the time. Like this planet is ruled by a regular human colony all right, well, who's in charge? This Imperial Guard, because that's who's protecting it. Space Marines, you can think of them as knights for mankind. If we need them, we call upon them. Usually they do their own thing though, and most of the time they're just protecting mankind. But if something is in their favor, like if they or something that they see that they want is there, then they act on their own to take whatever it is they want. It may be against other people's wants, but they don't care. They're still gonna do it. So
Yeah.
there's been a little bit of infighting here and there with different things, and I haven't even gotten into the different parts of like mankind in general. Man, there's the Adeptus Mechanicus or Mechanicum. That's a very interesting little thing. So a piece of mankind went to Mars, uh, discovered this thing called the Void Dragon. I believe it was a Void Dragon. I haven't looked into it. I know the Void Dragon's like around now, or they've released a model, so I know the Void Dragon. They've released some sort of lore, but the Void Dragon was one of the old ancient gods called the Satan, and the Emperor apparently fought the Void Dragon, didn't know what to do with, or knew it was gonna need it later, locked it in on Mars. Mankind went to Mars, discovered it, and they're like, all right, we're gonna start learning from this Void Dragon. So there's like a like the Mechanicum cult is like a separate entity, but they still helping mankind out. They're still delivering, they're still protecting. They're like, all right, we're gonna do the same thing, kind of like the Space Marines, do our own thing, but help out. But if we see something we want and we like, we're gonna take it. Like they're
Hmm.
it's kind of like it's still an alliance. They're still human, but they tread that fine line of being human and machine. Um, there was a time when mankind trusted machines to be their own sentient AIs, and there was a massive war before the. I think this is before unification. I don't know. It's called see damn, I can't remember what it's called, but they're called the Men of Iron, which were like the machines that rebelled against mankind, kind of a Matrix thing, and we ended up winning, but it was like a devastating war. We almost lost entirely. So
Yeah.
yeah, and that was all prior to us becoming like where they are with the Tyranids and all that. Tyranids is like later in the game, so it's just insane, man. There's so much lore.
Dude, it looks like it, man. It looks like there's, like I said, man, it seems like you could spend a lifetime explaining all of the stories and all of the characters and all of the wars, all of the battles, all of the deaths.
Damn, that's a
Seems like
lot
you
of
could spend,
yeah. There's a lot that's a lot of gene stealers right there.
dude, that's just, dude, that's disgusting and terrifying and it's just, that's,
It's
dude,
a
like what I'm doing when I look at this artwork, man, and when I listen to what you're saying and these stories, I can't imagine what it would be like to live that reality. You know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
the, the,
yeah.
the,
That's a
the
good.
like the guy in the picture that I just sent you, like what is he thinking right now? Like he's surely about to die.
I
But
guarantee. So that's one of the one of the reasons they managed to do what they do with no issue is because of the Emperor. So when the Emperor created those 20 Primarchs, his most favored son, whose name was Horus, um, he betrays him. He turned like half of the other Primarchs against him, and they took the fight to Earth. It nearly won, but then the Emperor fights Horus one on one. He ends up winning, but he gets mortally wounded too, and he goes back to Earth, and he sits on this throne called the Golden Throne, which is like helping him stay alive and keep away all the demons from the Webway project, which was something he was trying to create. The Eldar used the Webway um, to travel through the void or the warp, and they were trying to, mankind was trying to do the same thing, but they failed, and like demons came in because it's a hole into the warp. So demons started coming in, and they had to like stop it. So the Emperor sits on the golden throne. He is basically a decaying body now. He's not like a living. He's not like living. He's like psychically living. and all the sacrifices, every death that happens. Hell, they even have ships called black ships where it's just like a bunch of psychic people get sacrificed for the emperor. It's not even like their choice. They just,
Oh my God.
yeah, it's just like it's like sadistic. But they need it to happen. If they don't keep up this everything for the emperor would like die out because remember what I said about emotions sparking things in the warp and just keeping things alive, or bringing
Sure.
things life. That's what would happen if they stopped worshiping the emperor. Is like he would stop getting their energy, stop getting their all their just the psychic link to mankind, and he would end up just dying off. I think that's what the explanation was. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong, but it makes sense as to why they keep sacrificing all these people and people keep sacrificing themselves. Um,
Hmm.
so that's why the imperial cult is a very big thing. Is like they worship the emperor, so they don't have any fear, because it's like we're dying for the emperor. We're gonna live on next to our emperor's hand, next to his side. So I'd rather die and live with the emperor than stay here and have to fight off or have to live under this oppression of aliens and all that, whatever it is. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, that's man. These are some crazy pictures you're sending. It's only Tyranids so far.
Oh, are those still Tyranids?
Those are still Tyranids, man. That looks like Gene
Damn,
Stealer.
dude.
That looks like a Gene
That
Stealer army fighting Imperial Fists, and oh, actually no, they're not. They're not Imperial Fists. They got some red on them too. I don't know what chapter that is, but
you know what's partly crazy about these images that I'm seeing
yep,
is that even behind or even blended really with all of the carnage, with all of the brutality and the hopelessness even, these pictures, they and the stories, there's a great weight of hopelessness in all of this,
yeah,
but but there's also, when I look at these pictures, there's also valor, there's also nobleness, there's also, a desire to overcome no matter what, and that's it's interesting because it's like a dichotomy of all these different emotions, and that's what war is, I guess, like at its heart, even behind all of the different demons and all these things that you're telling me, at its core, war is all of those things. War is complex, war is human,
yeah.
and it's powerful, man. Like it's like that's the word, man. It's powerful.
It really is. Yeah, and the process to be a space marine is supposed to be like the last time they ever fear anything, because it's just like a
No
long.
shit.
It's a long process of like constant pain. It's like an intense process
Mhm.
of because what they do is they cut you open, they leave you open, and it's a very sterilized environment,
Oh my god.
and they purposely inflict pain in certain areas along with implanting and checking to make sure that the implants are accepted by your body. So there's a bit of like
Oh my
purpose,
god.
yeah, like purpose surgical pain, and then there's the pain of your body accepting these implants. So after that long process of becoming one, the point is like a lot of Space Marines. Um, that's all they don't ever fear a thing ever again. They're psychologically, physically, or no, and psychically, there may be, there's obviously some space marines that have fallen to fear in some way, and it may not be like I'm just
Mhm.
scared I'm gonna die. It's like I'm hopelessly scared, and or no, I'm like hopeless. I don't, everything I thought was true is no longer true. It's like a drastic change in their
Mm.
mindset, because they never fear again, no matter them being good or bad. They like never fear, but
Wow.
yeah, so because the Primarchs went evil, half of them went evil. Space Marines were made after the Primarch, or they were made genetically from uh, the Primarchs, and that's how they ended up making more Space Marines, um, and all these other legions and all that. But like they, that's just like crazy, to think about. Like, even though half of them, like, there's now evil space marines, they still don't fear nothing. Because especially them,
Yeah,
because
that
they've seen the
that
dark gods.
yeah, that concept is mind bending, you know, like but it does make sense. I mean, just looking at the art, man, like you would have to build an effective fighting force against such horrors, such unimaginable, such
Yeah,
just
yeah,
such
craziness.
things. Yeah, like you would have to build to have an effective fighting force against something like that. You would have to build something as crazy, something as fearless, you know, like
Yeah,
yeah, you would have to make fearless humans. There, if there was an ounce of of the old kind of humanity that dwelled on the negative things that could happen, you know, to your physicality,
yeah.
you know, or to your mind, like if there was an ounce of that left in you, there's no way a fighting force could succeed over some of the things that these people are fighting.
Yeah,
There's no way.
and there's some Imperial Guard books that even discuss that. They capture that moment of like, the characters like going through it, but then there's something that definitely kicks his butt back into gear, which is usually the commissar who will openly execute anybody if they feel like they need to. Like they're
Hmm.
given that they're given that authority to just like kill anybody, even if it's like the commander.
Hmm.
They'll just like execute them, and they'll temporarily take
Wow.
command until the next one comes in. Yeah, that's a real that's a real thing to think about when it comes to it. You're like, man, holy crap. But
Yeah.
and they do it because of that reason. You're fighting Tyranids. Tyranids don't think, they just work as a unit, all at once. So
Hmm.
you can't afford to have somebody think and succumbing to their fears in the moment of battle like that. Um,
Sure.
but I'm gonna have to go ahead and cut it here, man. Before I let you go, do you have any words for anybody that may be on your same road of the creative and just making a YouTube channel doing the same thing?
Damn. That's a question.
Okay,
Wow.
okay, shorten it.
Oh my God. Man, you know, I damn, I can't because everything, if I wouldn't say anything different than what you would find if you searched how to make a YouTube channel on YouTube. Like if you went to YouTube and you searched how to grow a YouTube channel to 1,000 subscribers,
Uh-huh.
like what they would tell you is what I would tell you, you know? Like what
What?
okay,
Okay,
so what
let me pinpoint it so you don't have to, look into the sea of vastness there. Uh, what has? I mean, you got a great mind, and it's like it's vast. um, what part of what part of your rising on your channel has been the pinnacle of like this isn't working to this is now working? What
Oh,
words
no,
could you
it's
share?
it no. See that's the thing. It's not working. So I know. I have never. You have to understand. I have, I think now 6.5 thousand subscribers, but that is nothing. Okay,
Yo,
and
dog.
and okay,
Yo,
I think
dog. I got 153. You gonna tell me?
okay. No. I'm gonna tell you right now. Okay, that's what I would say. Thank you for steering my mind in this direction.
There we go.
Okay,
Okay.
um, what I would say is that numbers mean nothing. That's what I would say. For someone who is trying to build a YouTube channel or a social media brand on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, do not be obsessed about the numbers. Do not It's important to realize their importance, right, and what they do and what they symbolize. But I'm telling you right now, numbers mean absolute. Oh, I knocked my water bottle. Numbers mean absolutely nothing. Okay, yeah, I was waving my fucking arm around and I smacked my water bottle. But what numbers and what I mean by that, what
Yeah.
I mean by numbers being nothing, is that what's more important than numbers is you interacting with the people who decide to follow you. Okay, When you get 50 people following you, actively following you. When I say 50 people, I don't mean 50 subscribers. I don't mean 50 followers, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean when you start to get 50 people actively engaging with your stuff, 100 people actively engaging with your stuff on a consistent basis. What matters more than your numbers will be how you interact with that number of growing people who actively show up to celebrate what you create. Okay? Because you could have 10,000 subscribers, right? But
yeah,
if you failed to interact with those living people who came, because not all 10,000 of those people will interact with you, you can have 10,000 subscribers and only 1,000 of those people actively come to watch your stuff actively every single time you make something, every single time you announce something. Only 1,000 of those people will show up. What matters more than that 10,000 number is you being there and interacting and showing the value that those people are giving to you as much as you are giving to them, because they're choosing to share their time with you. They are choosing to be there and tell you that they enjoy what you make and that they want more of it. So you have to acknowledge that, and you have to be thankful for that, and you have to celebrate that more than your numbers, because your numbers do not highlight the people who actually show up every time you create something.
yeah.
Okay?
That's true.
So that's what I would tell someone who's trying to grow a channel. Numbers mean nothing. Fuck the numbers. Fuck them, okay? Because if you're doing all the right things, your numbers will grow over time. That's inevitable. If you are doing all the right things, you are going to grow no matter what. If you are always consistent, if you are always creating, if you are always trying to find ways to evolve, you will always change. That's a given. What matters more than that is you actually being there for the people who show up every time you make something, because they will, and you'll see them over and over and over. I'm not talking about the person that comes and comments or maybe even buys something and then never interacts with your content again, right? But is
Yeah,
still subscribed to you because they just don't unsubscribe to people. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who actually come every single time you make something. Those people are more important than your numbers. You should focus on when your channel is growing. What I would say to someone growing a channel is they need to count the number of people who actively show up, who
yeah, yeah.
actively voice. Don't count your subscriber count. Count every time you have a new face that consistently shows up. That is your actual metric that you need to pay attention to, because the people matter more than your numbers.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate those kind words, and hopefully y'all take that advice to heart. 'Cause that sounds like some pretty good advice. Cause that definitely is a fall for a lot of people. I'm a guilty person on that myself at the very beginning. I was
we,
trying.
we all are. We all are.
Yeah,
We all fall guilty to it because the world has conditioned us to think that the numbers matter more than the people when they don't. It's the
yeah,
opposite, because the numbers are going to keep growing. If you're doing everything right, your numbers will rise, and the velocity of their rise will be different. Some people will grow faster than others. Some people are going to grow slower than others. And that just depends on what kind of content you're making. Some people will, some people right now are getting 100 subs or 100 followers on their platform every day. Some people are lucky to get 5. Some people are lucky to get 2 followers every day, you know?
yeah, yeah.
But and that's why you have to understand that what matters most is you just do the right things, and you always try to find new ways to evolve. Don't get stale, don't get content. Always try to find new ways to evolve, and pay homage to the people that show up every single time, because they're going to help your numbers grow. If you pay homage to those people, they will help your numbers grow.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, I gotta cut it here, man. I do appreciate that. Thanks for taking some time out of your day, man. Thank you so much.
Oh,
And
it's no problem, man. I know, man. I like you. I think you're a cool guy. I think you're a good dude, and it was a pleasure. Just as much as I don't know how much this affected you at all, but it was a pleasure for me to be here and talk with you, man. So I'm cool.
Hey man, one great mind to another. Thanks, and I'm glad we're on good terms. All right, well, thanks for bringing us the mind and the insight behind it all related content and pictures that we had been discussing will be in the description, and a link to his YouTube page will be posted in the description also. All right, so appreciate you, appreciate everybody listening. Y'all be easy now.